through the interplay of well-trained intellects that knew how to assess arguments and draw conclusions. With approval, modern historians note what seems like an emerging secular sophistication in the Athenians' understanding of their own collective story, not as a capricious game acted out by divine powers, but rather as an interplay of human motives, which may be complex but can ultimately be dissected and described. Contemporary admirers also love the fact that Athens had well-crafted laws and institutions whose very purpose was to transcend the personal vicissitudes of clever, ambitious individuals and the whims of jealous deities, and instead serve the broad public interest in a consistent way. Days before handing over the presidency to Donald Trump in 2016, Barack Obama visited the Acropolis and observed warmly that it was here 25 centuries ago, in the rocky hills of this city, that a new idea emerged. The name of that idea, he enthused, was Demokratia. In other words, a system where kratos, the power to rule, came from the demos, the people. As a description of the Athenian Golden Age and its ideals, all that is more true than false, but it also leaves out an important aspect of the city's legacy. Ancient Athens never ceased to be an intensely spiritual place, a space where the transcendental seemed ever present. True enough, the modern mind fixates on the human achievements of ancient Athens. It marvels at the logistical and practical skill that was required to haul so much shining marble up a steep hill and then fashion the glistening white rock into structures that enchant us with a false appearance of symmetry. Like medieval cathedrals, these monuments required a huge input of human brain power applied to engineering, geometry, and the properties of stone. But just as the modern mind finds it hard to imagine the spiritual ideals which underpinned those cathedrals, it also underestimates the spiritual aspect of the Acropolis. In fact, neither ancient Athens as a whole, nor its greatest monuments was a secular space in the sense we now understand. The finest monument of all, the Parthenon, was not a parliament building, but a temple in the particular sense that the ancient Greeks gave the word, not a place to pray or sacrifice, that happened outdoors, nearby, but a building that housed a sacred statue whose creation and installation was in itself an act of piety. The whole complex erected on the Acropolis was a giant statement of homage and thanks to Athena, the city's protectress, and to other deities. It was not just the structures on top of the citadel that were invested with holiness. The geological formation was known as the Hierobrachos, the sacred rock. Democratic debates happened not on the Acropolis but on a nearby hill, the Pnyx, which attracts too few visitors. Moreover, a remarkably high proportion of the Democratic Assembly's business consisted of micromanaging public religious practices, which sacrifices should be made to which gods and where. Whatever their penchant for rational investigation, the ancient Athenians resembled and often outdid their fellow Hellenists in having an intense feeling for the numinous. That is what makes their story so interesting and elusive. For them it came naturally to think of certain features of the natural world, from springs to entire mountains, as liminal spots, locations where mankind stood at the boundary between everyday reality and some transcendent world. The best Athenian citizens certainly did have powerful, reasoning, self-critical minds, but they also had a highly charged sense of the spiritual. It is not hard to see why the Acropolis was always perceived as one intensely liminal place by virtue of its form and location. It overlooks a well-watered plain, surrounded by 4 great mountains as well as smaller hills. In ancient times all these peaks abounded in beautiful vegetation. Mount Hymettus to the east was prized for its honey, Mount Pentelicon for its exceptionally pure marble. The sea sparkles at a safe distance, close enough to be convenient but far enough away to avoid the city becoming a sitting target for maritime invaders. A series of natural, defensible harbours can be made out on the horizon. It seems entirely natural to give thanks for the very existence of such a magnificent place. But the way in which